Just outside Paris stands a palace that changed the course of Europe, a palace where kings ruled, intrigues unfolded, alliances were forged, and empires collapsed. But beyond its brilliant mirrors and golden corridors, Versailles was also a place of secrets. Political secrets, personal secrets, and intimate secrets the monarchy tried to hide beneath layers of luxury. This is the real Versailles, a monument of power, vanity, pleasure, and decay. Louis XIV, the Sun King, dreamed of a palace that would outshine every other monument in the world. Versailles began as a simple hunting lodge, isolated, quiet, surrounded by forests and marshland. But Louis wanted more than a royal residence. He wanted a stage, a tool of power, a world built in his image. Construction began on a scale Europe had never seen. Tens of thousands of workers labored for decades, moving mountains, redirecting rivers, carving gardens, raising halls, and building rooms so magnificent that even the ambassadors of foreign courts stood speechless. Versailles became the symbol of absolute monarchy. Here, the king was not just a ruler. He was the sun around which everyone else revolved. Every inch of Versailles was designed for political manipulation. Nobles were forced to live here under the king's watchful eye. Privacy disappeared. Individual power disappeared. At Versailles, life was performance. To approach the king, you needed permission. To speak to him, privilege. To serve him, honor. Even the king's morning routine, the lever, was a ceremony with an audience of nobles competing for the smallest gesture, like handing the king his gloves. Power moved from the battlefield to etiquette. Versailles turned politics into choreography. But behind closed doors, Versailles served another purpose. A purpose the court never openly admitted, yet everyone knew. Louis XIV used Versailles as a stage not only for power, but for pleasure. The king maintained official mistresses, semi-official mistresses, and countless hidden affairs that the court gossiped about endlessly. Secret apartments were connected by hidden passages. Corridors behind walls allowed lovers, ministers, and confidants to move unseen. The most famous of these women, Madame de Montespan, became the true power behind the throne for years. Her salons were political hubs. Her influence shaped ministers, alliances, even wars. Versailles became a palace where sex and politics intertwined, where who shared the king's bed could influence the entire future of France. The king's libido was not merely personal, it was political, and Versailles accommodated it. The palace became a machine, not only of governance, but of spectacle, seduction, and control. Yet for all its elegance, Versailles hid a far more shocking truth. It was filthy. Unbelievably filthy. The palace had almost no proper toilets. Courtiers relieved themselves in hallways, staircases, behind draperies, even inside fireplaces. Chamber pots overflowed. Servants threw waste out of windows into the gardens. Visitors frequently complained about the stench, the unwashed crowds, animals roaming freely inside, and the overwhelming need for perfume to mask the smell. bathing was rare. Hygiene was primitive. Beneath its sparkling chandeliers, Versailles was a palace of overwhelming odor, a jewel, wrapped in decay. As the decades passed, the magnificence of Versailles grew. But so did the disconnect between royalty and reality. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette lived in comfort like no other royals in Europe, surrounded by games, theater, music, and gardens designed only for their pleasure. Meanwhile, outside Versailles, famine swept across France. When the people have no bread, Marie Antoinette was rumored to have said, "Let them eat cake." The quote is likely false, but its symbolism ignited public rage. In 1789, the revolution stormed the palace. The monarchs were forced to flee. Versailles, once the heart of the monarchy, was abandoned. Versailles remained empty for years, a frozen relic of a vanished world. But in 1919, after World War I, leaders from around the world gathered here once again. In the legendary Hall of Mirrors, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. It punished Germany severely, economically, politically, and morally. The hall that once glorified the Sun King became the stage for Europe's fragile peace. But that peace carried the seeds of another war. 21 years later, in June 1940, Paris fell to Nazi Germany. Hitler entered the city victorious, but he had one destination in mind: Versailles. He walked through the palace in silence, surrounded by his officers. And then he entered the Hall of Mirrors, the very place where Germany had been humiliated in 1919. He stood there, staring into the mirrors, taking in the room where his country's defeat had been decided. To Hitler, this moment was symbolic revenge. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Germany had returned, and Versailles, the palace of power, had once again become the setting of history's darkest chapters. Today, Versailles is a museum, a monument, a memory. Millions walk through its halls, unaware of the secrets hidden behind the walls, the political games, the forbidden affairs, the filth beneath the perfume, the revolutions it ignited, the wars it witnessed. Versailles is more than a palace. It is the mirror of human ambition, a place where beauty masked corruption, where pleasure shaped politics, where glory fed downfall. It is the